Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Werner and today I want to present you the topic codec and format. By my side I have Dave. Dave, switch on your camera and show your beautiful face. Hello. Did you forget to switch on your microphone?
Oh, rookie error, microphone muted.
Now we're talking.
Hi,
Hello.
welcome. Yeah, thanks, Vanna. I'm going to disappear now and let you get on with what you need to do.
Yes, Dave will be our wingman, my wingman today. He will answer all the questions. And Dave and me will stay on a little bit after the webinar because most of the time if we do webinars, the questions are so much that we need a little bit more time. So everything will be answered. Just stay till everything is finished and even more, and we will answer everything or give you information, links, addresses, phone numbers, whatever you want to know about everything you want to know. So our topic today is codecs and formats, and actually show you what we do today. We are talking about what is a codec, what is a format, and what is a container, what are the advantages and disadvantages. And there is a lot of keywords which you will hear all the time when you're talking about especially codecs, which is lossy, lossless compression, uncompressed, snappy, and many, many more. And I will give a bit, hopefully a little bit of clearance in that word and explain a little bit about this. So this webinar is basically for beginners. If you are the fully crack and the fully expert about this, there's probably nothing I can show you. But if you recently started with Pandoras Box, or you just do it for a year and want to know the pros and cons about certain codecs formats, or what are the differences between codecs and formats, and what is a container, this is your webinar. So, and of course, we will give you the recommended file formats for Pandoras Box. So what is actually a codec? The thing is, if you go with your camera and you take a picture, you have a large file, a very big file, and you want to transmit it through the internet, through a network. You need to reduce the file size. So a codec actually is a blend between the word coder and decoder. And usually a device that only compresses, typically called an encoder or coder, that's the same word. And the thing that only decodes is a decompressor, or the device that only decompresses is a decoder. So if you're talking about decoders, you mean decompressing. If you're talking about coding, you mean compressing. So actually a video codec by itself is a little program that compresses and decompresses digital video. We will basically, of course, talking about video content today, a video codec today, and video formats, because everything else is not that big part of Pandoras Box. Of course, we use images and a little bit of audio, but the main goal is video codec. So the main goal of a codec is to reduce the amount of data for transmitting. What does it mean? So you have this large file which you took a picture outside or something else, and you want to see that on your little mobile phone or on a projector, but you just want to upload it very quick. So the amount of data needs to be reduced, so you need to compress it. And if it's compressed, if it's a compressed file, it doesn't need that bandwidth from a network or for a Wi-Fi, and it will be loaded faster. So you need codec to compress your data and to decompress it. Encoding is the transformation of a raw picture data in abstract but more efficient data format. That's explaining it with more colorful words. So we have proprietary, that's the word, proprietary codec, like Windows Media Audio or QuickTime Apple. So if you have Codec, which was developed by a certain company, and still has some licenses on it, we call it proprietary codec, but there also is, of course, standardized codecs like MPEG H.264 or H.265. So, but of course, there is some free license codecs as well. For example, VP9 from Google, which is free of license, and OpenH.264. So that's a little overview. What is actually a codec? Compression, decompression. But how does it work? So you have the few keywords which I showed you before. One thing is lossy encoding. So if you lossy encodes, like the word is saying, you will lose some information. Lossy compression permits reconstruction only for approximation of the original data. Of course, it's improving a lot, so the reducing, or you will not notice the reducing as much as it's been a couple of years ago, but still, if it's lossy encoding, you will lose some of the data. Technical wise, how do you, what do you do? What is it doing for compressing your files? There's a thing called chroma subsampling. I don't want to go too much into the technical details, but it mainly means that you, like the word is saying, usually you take the, how do you say it? You use the YCBCR color space family, and chroma subsampling is just sampling. How do you say that? Just sampling the full picture, or undersamples it in a certain way, so that you can actually leave it like it is. Then you call this. Here we go. That's a type of, that's all the types of sampling and subsampling. I don't want to go too much into that because that's too much technical detail. But a chroma subsampling just basically means, okay, I have this one picture and I take probably 2 sampling rates to 2 points to sample it, or to less. So the words you need to see are these 4.4.4 chroma subsampling, which is actually no subsampling. Will you see the full thing? There is 4.420, 411, 420. But I think it's more easy if you just take a picture of that, probably take a screenshot and Google that, or go to Wikipedia to know exactly what chroma subsampling means. I have a nice picture for you, which is showing the actual details. So in here, you will see the, oops, that was too fast. You will actually see the details you are losing between 444, 422, 420, and 411. Technique. How does codec work as well? So you have the lossy compression, but you also have lossless compression. That is compression that allows the full reconstruction of the original data. With lossy compression, you will always lose a bit, and it will not be 100% the original size, but with lossless compression, you will get the full and original data, which you can see. For example, a lossless compression, a good example for that is a zip file. You have the data, you put it into a zip file, and if you unzip it, you get exactly the same data which you had before, the same file which you had before. If you have a picture, you can imagine a blue sky. So a blue sky will always have various informations, but if you're using lossless compression, You could tell your file that, oh, this dot is blue, and multiply it, for example, by 50 or by 100 or by 1,000. That doesn't take that much information. Then tell all the time, there's a blue pixel, there's a blue pixel, there's a blue pixel, there's a blue pixel. So, for example, blue sky is very easy to lossless uncompress. The standards for lossless algorithm, for example, is RLE, run length encoding. And you have to beware if you're using variable, or you have to know, you can use a variable bitrate or a constant bitrate. That's another technical thing. Better look it up, but now you heard it and you know that there can be, of course, variable bitrates and constant bitrates. There is a snappy compression. That's probably a very fast, data decompressing or compressing library written in C++, developed by Google, and it's now open source. So everybody can use this snappy compression. So the main things for this topic for Codec will be lossless compression, snappy compression. What is a format or a container? If we are talking about files, if we see a file with a file extension, probably like MP4, we always talk for like, this is the format, but actually it is a container format, or a digital container format. So a container or wrapper format is a meta file format whose specification describes how different elements of data and metadata coexist in a computer file. I found this very nice sentence on Wikipedia, so I typed it in here. That explains it very well. So actually, the container is a container for a video file is a part that contains all these files which you need to play back a specific video. For example, the video codec, the audio codec, and of course metadata. Metadata will be the resolution, the bitrate, which device you're using, the time of creation, and many, many more. So you can compare this. You can compare this like a shipping container. If you're using a ship and you have one container, this container has always one size, but it contains whatever formats is inside. That's actually the same thing with container formats. You have a certain, the actual format is the same, but it contains different codecs, different audio and video codecs. The metadata are, of course, always the same. A typical container format is a MOV file, like MP4. And that can be encoded with a large variety of codecs and formats. So if you see a MOV file, it is a container format. There are a few softwares which you can use to actually see what is inside your container. We're using that, even though if we get a file and don't know what is inside, which codec will be used, you can use a software like Gspot or Media Info. There are little free softwares, and you put in your file and you will get all the information about it. All codecs, not all codecs are created equally. So, and some of the containers have bad codecs inside, and that can of course cause problems or performance issues. So take care. Always check the content when you put it into your Pandoras Box timeline. And if you want to use content of the internet, that is usually very compressed and created for small network bandwidth. So actually not the best to use for Pandoras Box. So good codec for Pandoras Box are those who give good quality images. And a constant bitrate is better than a variable bitrate for encoding. Then you will get a more stable performance. I have a little thing also from Wikipedia, which shows not all of them, but a little range of the video compression, audio compression, or the container formats, what you can have. You can type this into Wikipedia and get a big overview about all the container formats and multimedia compression and decompression codecs. So, Pandora's Box. What are the recommended formats? I will give you a little overview about the video formats, image formats, and our preference image sequences, and a little bit about audio formats. Let's start with the video formats. Pandora's Box can use, or will be fine with MPEG-1, which is I like the name. It got developed by the moving picture expert groups, and this is standard for lossy compression, video and audio. Very commonly used, and you will see a lot of file extensions which are using MPEG-1. Can be MPG, MPEG, MP1, MP2, MP3, whatever you see. This all just type in MPEG-1. The fine format for. Oh, it's a usable format for Pandora. Also, you have MPEG-2, which is a standard for generic coding and moving pictures, associated audio information with the lossy compression, and used extensively in broadcasts. The standard is called H222 or H262, and we can use AVI, audio video interleave, which is a subformat for an REFF file. Let's go from video formats to still image formats. I show you the still images you can use, single still images you can use for Pandora's Box. That's bitmap, DDS, PNG, and TIFF. I will tell you more about this when I come to image sequences. For now, I will just tell you there's two more single image formats which we can use, which is TGA, a very old format, and of course JPEG. It's a very common method, loses lossy compression for digital images. Yeah, I think I don't need to tell you about JPEGs because everybody used it already, I think. So image sequence and image sequence formats. These are the most common, the best quality, the best performance, the best things you can do if you have another video and you're using image sequences, which is like a little stream of pictures itself. And then you can use the same, nearly the same, like single images. You can use bitmaps, DDS, PNG, and so on. And I will go through all of them. We'll start with the bitmap image sequence. So a bitmap is a raster graphic image file format, also known as DIB, Device Independent Bitmap, was developed by Microsoft with the file extension names BMP and DIB. The pros and cons. So the pros about this image sequence is it has a great quality, it is uncompressed, it has very fast encoding, or no decoding, it is very fast. It can be used with snappy compression, excellent for computer-generated graphics. If you have a LED wall and you're using a lot of text, that's actually the content, that's the format you will use. The cons are it has very large files and it will use a lot of storage space. For the performance bottleneck, it will use a lot of RAM memory, and a lot of your SSD power, not as much the CPU and the GPU. You have bitmap 32, which has one channel left for the alpha channels. So you have with this add bit 256 transparency levels. After bitmap, we come to DDS. So, forgot something. The pros for a DDS is a very high performance. We use it a lot. Great for playback with a high amount of files, very good quality, very good ratio files versus the quality. Can be also used with snappy compression, but like every image sequence that has some cons, it uses a long encoding time. Depending on the complexity of the content, it is compressed, and with compressed, there are some artifacts in computer-generated gradients. And very important, notice that the resolution has to be multiplies of 4 that you can display it on Pandoras Box. The performance bottleneck usually it's going more to the graphical processor unit. Then we have the next image sequence you can use is YCOCG. The pros for that, it's similar to DDS, but with a better quality. It's good for nature interview camera shots, very nice colors, great performances. It can also be used with snappy compression. The cons are it has no alpha support, so yeah, no alpha, which is actually a big thing today. It takes long to encode as well, depending on the complexity of the content. It is compressed and it has some artifacts in computer-generated gradients. Depending on the content quality, it can be worse than DDS. So sometimes you just have to try out your content on the timeline of Pandoras Box and see which format works the best. The next thing will be PNG and PNG 32 or PNG alpha. The pros are it has a great quality, it has lossless compression, smaller file sizes, and can be used with snappy compression as well. It needs, the cons are it needs a lot of CPU power during the playback, and the encoding time is just average. The next image sequence you can use on Pandoras Box will be hub, hub-Q, and hub alpha. Actually, it is a hub image sequence is actually a DDS image sequence in a MOV container. It has a reasonable image quality. Hub alpha has reasonable image quality with an alpha channel, of course. Hub Q has a good image quality on a higher data rate. And DDS is actually, like I told you, the equivalent to DDS alpha is the equivalent to hub alpha. Something different. DDS alpha is the equivalent to hub alpha. DDS alpha is the equivalent to hub alpha, and YCOCG uses the same compression as hub Q. The performance level are described as above. The next thing is the TIFF image sequence. A TIFF is called a tagged image file format, which can be compressed or uncompressed. It's a very complex format, which can be encoded in multiple ways. And the thing how we do it in Pandoras Box, you use no compression, because this needs to be uncompressed. Image needs to be stored in one stripe and not in multiple stripes. For these guys who use TIFF and are a bit more advanced, I think Adobe does that itself. So that's actually the Pandoras Box image sequences. We also recommend some of the audio formats, which is PCM Wave plus multi-channels, MP3 to M2A, and embedded audio and video. But to tell you more about audio formats, you just stay on this channel till Friday, because on Friday, Dave is actually doing a nice webinar about audio. So register that. After this, like in a couple of minutes, I will show you the link where you can register for Friday, and you will get all the information about audio formats. So I like these, leave this out for now, and just give you a little view about the future. What are we doing? We will do 10-bit color depth, for example, TIFF 16-bit with a 10-bit color depth. We have a new image converter with DBX. That's a DBX, a digital picture exchange, which can have 8, 10, or 12-bit file and is uncompressed, will be released with Pandoras Box version 6.5. And as well, in the making, we have HEVC/H265 with 10-bit compressed. This will be in the near future, in the next releases. DBX already in the next release will be Pandoras Box 6.5. And this is actually it. These are the main things you can say for a general beginner state about compression, about codecs, about formats, about containers. Here's a few links. If you want to register for Fridays, especially for Friday's audio webinar, you just can go to our forum. You just need to register or see it on our webpage. And we have a nice help file which tells you a lot about content, codecs, and formats. And this video will be put on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. And this is the link over there. I will put these links all in the question bar after this. So that was it actually from my side. Let's jump to Dave. Are you in, Mr. Thompson?
I'm coming. There I am. Hello.
Oh. Hello.
Yes, thank you, Vanna. Okay, so there were some questions. One of them being there was a question regarding 8K content. What codec would we use for that? I would suggest at this stage, or my workflow at this point would probably be to use image sequences for handling such large file sizes, purely because you get more performance handling more small files than handling one large canvas. So I would be doing that with image sequences. The next question that came up was regarding using QuickTime in Pandoras Box. Now, obviously with now the new version, the 6.4, we're implementing further and greater codec support. So you can use QuickTime files in Pandoras Box at the moment, but it is, well, currently it's without embedded audio, but obviously we're looking at, well, we are in the development process, so obviously that will be brought back in at a later date. So yeah, then there was another question regarding HapQ Alpha. HapQ Alpha is not supported. Then, pardon?
No,
Okay.
go on.
All right. So then there were some questions. So there was a question regarding Notch LC. Obviously, Notch is. Well, Vanna, would you like to answer that one?
We get this question so often. It is on the roadmap. As I think we all said that many times before, but I think the main goal at the moment is to make the 64 bits like perfectly stable, make the make DirectX, and after all this, so let's say nearly after summer, there will be a notch implementation. Everybody knows, they're all asking many times. This will happen. I cannot tell any date.
Yeah. So just with regards to Codec, I mean, obviously that's in the future, and that is obviously once the notch implementation has been completed on the roadmap. Yeah, and then I think that was about it as far as that goes. Just another thing to add. Vanna spoke about variable bitrate and constant bitrate content. And just to reiterate, so my view as a previous operator was to always have as stable a show as possible, and to do that, you obviously need to make sure that you know what's happening with your codecs. To use Vanna's analogy of the shipping container for a container format, I think that's actually a really brilliant example, because sometimes you might get a container full of stuff that you want, and sometimes you may get a container full of rotten bananas. Basically, if you've been given a bunch of content from your customer and it's all been downloaded from the internet and it's pulled down from various websites, it could have any different codec sitting in that container. So my recommendation would be to run it through the encoder extension in Pandoras Box, clean it out so that you're getting a constant bitrate file on the other side, that you're getting a clean file coming out on the other side. If you're using variable bitrate files, you can end up with situations, again, depending on how you've programmed your show, but variable bitrate files use a lot of performance because look at my hand moving on the camera. So as the variable bitrate file is moving, the performance levels are increasing and decreasing. It can very seldom, but it can lead to performance problems in your hardware. So again, let's use an analogy of a car. If you put terrible oil in your engine, if you buy the cheap oil, put the cheap oil in your engine, it's not going to run as smoothly. If you put good quality content into your media server, in fact, any media server, you're going to have a good quality image coming out. You're going to have stable performance. You're going to have your shows running like you want them to be running. So yeah, think carefully about what you're doing. Also the DDS versus HAP. HAP is great if you have a lot of content coming at you really fast and they want some good quality. Sure, put it into a HAP container. If you want to have the flexibility, maybe where you need to replace some files inside of an image sequence, then go for a DDS image sequence, and then you can just replace the files sitting in the folder. So you could look at that option. There's obviously, with everything you do in an environment with content, there's always a pro and a con to everything. It's always finding that trade-off between really high quality images, or maybe finding something that's a little bit quicker on the loading times, or quicker with the content creation. So yeah, what you're going to need to do is figure out what works for you, what works for that particular production, what works for your client, and also, yeah, it's also looking at your shows coming up or looking at your projects and saying, okay, this is what I want for the show, and then send out a briefing document to your customer and say, hey, customer and content creator, can I have this format delivered by these dates, just to kind of ease your workflow in your production environment. So yeah, I see there are some more questions that have come in. I'm just going to go off the camera. Vanna can talk to you for a moment while I read your questions.
No, I just say bye. I think that's it from our side. I will say goodbye, but we will stay online and will answer all your questions. We just switch out the cameras and microphone, but I see some more questions coming in. We will answer that. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your day, and jump in and see Friday's webinar for audio. Thank you. Bye. And thank you, Dave, for all your fantastic support.
Yeah, you're most welcome, Vanna. Oh, now Vanna's gone. Yeah, sorry, Vanna, you can come back. Sorry, there's another question. What is the best codec for image sequences if the quality is the biggest priority? Thank you for that one. The best answer would be TIFF or bitmap sequences. Vanna, I think you said earlier that they are essentially the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just the header information in the container is different.
Yeah. So that would be for maximum quality, obviously bitmap. Again, you will need the hardware to support that. So you're going to be doing SSD RAIDs, preferably server hardware by our servers. But the server hardware, and also you can use bitmap and TIFF sequences on our player hardware as well. So yeah, they're obviously not limited just to our hardware, but yeah, thank you, Roland. I see that question there. So yeah, so then TIFF and bitmap sequences would be the answer to your question. Yeah, and again, I answered the 8K question. Yeah, I think that is about it for now. There was another question that came in. Sorry, I just wanted to answer it. Any recommendations for transcoding files? Okay, so you can. Okay, so you can break up your content handling in Pandoras Box into or your content workflow into a couple of different ways. If you are getting various files delivered in different formats, and you're working pretty much in a 16:9 format, you can use the encoder extension directly in Pandoras Box to convert these files into something a little bit more, well, trustworthy. Well, trustworthy is maybe not the right word, but I prefer to work in MPEG-2 purely because, again, it's the constant bitrate stuff. You can also play around with the encoder extension to create your own codec profiles or encoder profiles to really get, so that you don't lose any content in your conversion process. But then again, on the other side of your, once you've pushed all your files through your encoder extension, you've got only one kind of file that you're working with inside of your project. So that would be one way of looking at it. Use your encoder extension to convert everything into an MPEG-2. Then if you're working with image sequences, you can then also use the image converter to then convert your image sequences from one format to another. So you can go from PNG sequences to DDS, for example. You can work with all of that kind of stuff. Also, if you're working with large format files, so really great, really big pixel counts, you can also then use the splitter tool to cut that content into your smaller subsections. Again, with the splitter tool, you can obviously select what format you want to export out of the splitter tool. Yeah, so I think that pretty much answers it questions wise. Another question that just going back to the recommendation for the transcoding files. There are one or two freeware applications out there that you can use if you really need to use something. But my personal workflow, or my opinion, is if you're going to be ingesting content into Pandoras Box, use the Pandoras Box tools to encode it or ingest it, or make it into a workable solution for your particular project. Okay.
Cool.
Last chance to ask a question. Thanks, Vanna.
We can go without the cameras, actually.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I'll be certainly here on Friday as part of the audio presentation.
Am I, as an old audio guy, I will listen to that, of course, and see it.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, thanks for joining us. Enjoy playing with your product, enjoy your Pandoras Box, and keep safe.
Keep safe. See you all on Friday. Thank you. Goodbye.